Hey, what's happening all? I am in Milwaukee at the moment. I'm at the Iron Horse Hotel. This is, of course, the room and kind of an interesting mural they got in here. So I've got somebody watching me sleep. Kind of an interesting situation. So weird to look at when we shut the lights off. Can't see her, so it doesn't bug me near that. I will be back home tomorrow, just here getting some things tightened up in presentations and speeches and all that kind of stuff. Trying to continue to keep building the brand, building the business. But we've got an interesting thing laying ahead of us right now. I want to show you some stuff because some new announcements just came out this week. We had one of the members of the Fed board, Brainerd, came out and was talking about trying to rapidly basically unravel their balance sheet, if you will. Why would that be a big deal? That's a massive deal for us. I'm going to share a chart with you. You guys got to, me in the charts, but this thing's kind of concerning to take a look at. So if you look here, this shows the total assets on the Fed's balance sheet, the Federal Reserve basically stepping into the mortgage-backed securities and into the other bonds, U.S. Treasuries, that kind of thing. So what we see here is their participation in this. When you start seeing, I can't really see my cursor at all. See if I can get you something that looks a little bit more, doesn't work really well. So just say I'm looking up until about right here. I'm going to draw this red line. So they're back. If you look at that, that is their participation up until probably somewhere right around, that 2008, 2009 area, right? So this is where they really didn't purchase much in that. They weren't really involved. After that, you see they jumped into it, right? They started jumping into putting money into the mortgage-backed securities, into the treasuries, trying to soften things in the economy, keep the interest rates low, try and help the economy come back from what happened during the crash. Well, then the gray bar we've got there, where all that is, right? I drew all this, hell, I can't even see my damn cursor on this thing right now. So that big gray bar, that is the recession. That is that whole area during that 2008, 2009, 2011, 2012, all that, right? Well, you can see they kept putting in, they kept buying in, right? And then you see the pandemic, right? Well, you see there, just towards the other end of this, where they just spiked it all up. It's crazy. They have got over $9 trillion now invested into these particular instruments. But now they're talking about divesting. So what does that mean for us, right? So what is divesting this going to do for what we're doing, right? So what we're talking about is basically what's going to end up happening is they're supposedly going to start shrinking it down from their, and they say a rapid shrink. It could be 35 billion per month. It could be 100 billion per month by the end of the year. They're thinking by the end of this year, $475 billion in basically unraveling that off their balance sheet. That's going to have a negative impact on interest rates. You don't think we're having a negative impact on interest rates now? I think we're going to have an extreme impact on interest rates down the path. So one of the other things I wanted to really point out to folks here, and as we're talking, is where we're at in inflation. A lot of people are freaking out right now about where we're at with the interest rates and why are they going up so rapidly, and they really don't understand this. Well, let's take a look here at shadow stats. You can see where the inflation tables are. This is, I'm going to zoom in on this one more so than the other, because this one shows you that historically back in the 80s, right, where we had they were tracking both the same, or how they measure inflation was they took all the expenses that everybody had. Well, now, as we know it with the CPI, they started cooking it back in the 80s. Now we start seeing where CPI is following a different number, because they're only following things they can manipulate with monetary policy, not your real food costs, not your real energy costs, and not all the housing. There's no way the housing numbers could be in there, because you've seen what's going on with housing. Well, they're claiming now we're approaching, probably they're guessing about 8.5%. Look at where the real rate of inflation, 16, approaching maybe 17%. When was the last time we saw this kind of inflation? Back in the 80s, right? So if inflation was this high back in the 80s, then where were interest rates back in the 80s? Anybody remember that? Well, let's take a look at that. Here we'll get ourselves another chart. And since I only have one screen at a time here, it makes it a little bit hard for me to be able to find these things and be able to pull them up. So it's going to take me a second to find this. So give me just a moment, because I definitely want you guys to see the difference and what we're talking about here. Because we're talking when we're engaged in what inflation is doing to the market and how that impacts things, it impacts the cost of everything, right? We also know it should impact the interest rates. So here's a comparison. 1980, right here. We were showing the charts 1980, 1981, right in there is where we're matching inflation. What was the interest rate? Over 18%, right? Even here in the early, like 82, 83, over 14, 1985, 9, 10%, right? Guys, we're still down here, 6 for real estate investors, in the 5s for owner occupied. There's this big gap here where we should be. We should be in here somewhere, and we're not. So I think that everybody needs to calm down just a little bit about what's going on with the interest rates. Just take a little bit of a step back and think about the big difference with what we should be versus where we are. Take advantage of the situation, right? We've got long-term lock capability. Reach out to us if you've got a deal in process. Let's look at that long-term lock. It's going to cost you something to get it, but I say get it, because we don't know what's going to happen if they start unraveling this balance sheet. We don't know where this is going to go. So we may be slammed out of our minds here trying to catch up with all that, trying to get that all stitched up. But I think we really need to look at that closely. If you've got a deal in process, when you start looking at these long-term locks and start stitching these up, because I don't know where we're going to head with this, but I'm not overly confident there's going to be anything that we want to see. I really don't believe this is the type of thing that we want to see the outcome and have not done anything about it. So let's take a look at today's chart, more charts, of course, and see where we're at with mortgage-backed securities. As you can see, we're continuing this downward trend. There's nothing coming out that's helping us. Every time we think we're going to get somewhere, starting to go sideways, bam, we take a major beating. We should have been stable right here. Should have been stable, but too much comment. This is where the Fed came, Lael Brainerd came out and started talking about, unraveling the balance sheet. Look at how much damage that did, right? Too much going on in the market for us to be able to predict where it's going to go. I thought that we would be at least the end of the year before we reach 6%. We blew through the 5s in like a week and a half to 2 weeks, guys. There's nothing we can do about this to stop it other than long-term locks, start really, really protecting ourselves in the market. Reach out to us. If you've got a deal in process, email myself, email Scotty, email Ellen, right? So aaron.chapman at snmc.com, ellen.schmidt at snmc.com, scotty.baer, B-A-E-R, at snmc.com, carla.rausch at snmc.com, R-A-U-C-H. We want to be sure that we get this stitched up for you. I'm traveling. Get my team involved. If you're emailing me, Brianna's going to jump on there. Just put in their long-term lock. You want to get that stitched up. We're going to have to do this. And if we got a flood of them, just know we're going to do the best we can to get to them as fast as we can. It's the nature of things. We're going to do our best, guys. Thank you for the trust. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. This is very, very early. There's probably new news that comes out when I put this out. It's 5:21 a.m. Pacific as I'm doing this. So when you see it, get this information, get a hold of my team, see if we can make it happen. Thank you.